Here's a question for you. Where is your home?
I'm 27 years old. I'm Kenyan, but I spent part of my life in the UK.
I was born in Congo, but I'm American.
Well, that's really difficult. I mean, when I'm in Dubai, I say I'm from Holland, and when I'm in Holland, I say I'm from Dubai. I tend to be answering that question to a Dutch person, so they're getting it back to me in Dutch, which means they already understand that I have a Dutch background.
We've moved around like a lot of places, like we've lived overseas for the majority of my life, so every time someone asks me where I'm from, I never have like a specific answer.
I spent my formative years in the UK. That's when I went to live with my mom, and a lot of what she taught me was British, like even with the way she spoke, like the way I got used to speaking while I was there.
I am a third culture kid, or a TCK. I have had many homes, and yet I have no home. I can fit in anywhere, but at the same time, I never fully fit in any one place. Here is my home. Well, here's one of them. This is where I lived until I was 8, and then we moved here for 3 months, and my 4th grade teacher was Mrs. Veloth. Then I lived here until I was 10 and went to school on a military base. And then I lived here for the next 2 years and was the star pitcher for my softball team. Then we moved here, and that was the year my grandmother passed away. Y luego vivíamos en España. And then we moved to Florida. We don't talk about Florida. Croatia was next, and I lived there the longest after New York. And finally, here I am now in The Hague trying to make sense of all the moving. Third culture kids are people who grow up in a country different from the one that their parents are from, or that is different from their own passport country. Let me explain. Imagine you're a circle person from the country of Circle Land. It's a round place with a spherical culture, but suddenly, for some reason or another, you have to leave Circle Land and go off somewhere else. You end up in Square Land. It's edgy, it's sharp. In short, it's everything Circle Land isn't. And even though you're completely different when you get there, after a while you start to change. Maybe you eat dinner at square time, or you start speaking square. Whatever it is, you lose a little roundness, you gain some edges, and you become a triangle. And then you leave Square Land one day and find yourself back in Circle Land. But you're not a circle anymore. And looking back at Square Land, you're not a square either. You're somewhere in between. Now imagine that you're a circle child, and your circle parents do the same thing our other circle friend did. They leave Circle Land for an edgier country and bring you with them. When you go back to Circle Land, you feel even more out of place than your parents do. Maybe they even gain back some of their roundness. But you? You're different. You feel a kind of pull between the many places you've lived, but in the end, your parents are the ones who stay triangles. You're actually a star. And that star right there is a third culture kid. You take the best of the two cultures you've grown up in and create your very own third culture. And that's why you're a star. And there's plenty of other stars out there who feel just as you do, but it's kind of hard to find them sometimes, especially in Circle Land. I started making YouTube videos out of high school about being a third culture kid, and I made a connection with so many other people who also don't know how to answer this simple question, where are you from? I wanted to talk to a few people like the ones that I connected with on YouTube and find out how they felt about being a third culture kid and what they've gotten out of it. Ultimately seeing if our experiences matched up in going back to our home countries and trying to fit in and belong. All of us have problems getting used to our home country.
In some ways, I did give up a normal lifestyle. I had to get used to different things that I know, like people back in the States wouldn't understand.
And we've also missed out on a lot in our home cultures.
I suppose I missed out on very typically Dutch times of year and seasonal things. But for what I got in return, yeah, I don't really regret it.
We appreciate all of the things that we've gotten to do and see in our lives.
I appreciate things that other people probably just look at like, oh, well, this has always been there. It's nothing new. It's nothing special.
But yeah, I've just learned to appreciate things a lot more as well.
And we all have people ask us ridiculous questions. Like the time someone asked me if I had ever been to Prussia, or if I could take a plane to Italy if I was in Spain. For one thing, Prussia isn't a country anymore, and for another, planes can take you anywhere in the world, so yes?
What else do they ask? There's the one about animals, like whether lions use the same roads as we do.
I was also asked if like I had a camel.
I've had so many weird things like said to me or asked about. Like, I know, of course, going back to the States, like when we lived in Nigeria, I had cousins ask me if we had internet.
I think they think we live amongst the animals. So I don't even know how to explain it because I don't know exactly how other people think. But
if I lived in the desert, like amongst like Bedouins and stuff, like that's sort of the impression they had of where I lived, like, you know, some sort of war-torn state.
Or when we lived in Gabon, people asked me if we lived in like those huts or whatever. Or I don't know, just a lot of crazy things where you're just wondering, like, where do you get this information from?
Yeah, people seem to assume that animals just kind of roam around in Kenya, like on the streets, on the roads, like everywhere. Like you open your front door and there's a lion, like lying right there.
Please just type Dubai into Google.
I wish that like my family in the States could have experienced like how I've grown up, but at the same time it's kind of nice to have that American side so I don't lose that part of me as well.
If there's one thing that I've learned from being a third culture kid, it's that there's always going to be something that you've missed out on in life. There's always a trade-off. There's always going to be a trade-off, and we can't know what we've missed out on if we hadn't made that exact trade. If I had stayed in America for the past 13 years, I wouldn't be the person that I am today. This year, I'm going back to my home country indefinitely. It's going to be a big change, it's going to be different, and I'm going to have to adapt. But we're pretty good at that by now.